Honored listeners, sovereign allies, and noble guests from across the realms of royalty, diplomacy, and innovation. Welcome to the Summit Sessions podcast, where vision finds its voice and legacy is not just preserved, but powerfully reborn. This is no ordinary gathering. Here beneath the banners of destiny and noble lineage, we meet upon sacred ground, a mountaintop of dialogue where ancient bloodlines meet modern brilliance, and each word carries the weight of heritage and the fire of what's to come. The Summit Sessions is a sanctuary for the visionary and the valiant, leaders, dignitaries, creators, and change makers, those who shape not merely economies or institutions, but the very purpose of our age. In this sovereign space, we honor the timeless call to elevate the human spirit and chart new courses of power, peace, and progress. I am your host, Lady Caitlin Natalie Bracewell-Swinton, Royal Emissary of the Royal, Noble, and Imperial House of Alaroon and Director of Business Development for Herbert Northford-Ellis. It is my profound honor to guide you through this exalted summit of sovereign voices and timeless vision. Let us begin. Where each summit reached becomes the sacred ground for the next ascent. Good day, everyone. I'm your host, Lady Caitlin Swinton, and in this episode of the Summit Sessions podcast, I sit down with Dr. Tornike, who discusses the critical analysis of hybrid warfare challenges to global and national security. Tune in now and see what he has to say.
After we regaining independence, again we had war. War was started by Russia once, second, third time, occupied territories after Crimea, then East Ukraine, and so on and so on. I think that and a lot of my colleagues and experts agree with me, share my opinion that we underestimated threats. It's better to overestimate threats than underestimate. Because when we underestimated Russian phase, Russian aggression, Russian global interests, well, we faced a lot of challenges and problems, not only regions, globally, because we have now proxy war in Ukraine. South Caucasus and Georgians are in this war as well, because Ukrainians and Georgians have the same threat. This is the Russian influence, and the new players appeared in the region as well. US, EU, which are, of course, EU and US are our allied countries, strategic partners. EU integration is our goal. It's like an existential importance to become the European Union member country. Turkey is our neighbor. Turkey is NATO country. And of course, cooperation with Turkey in our region, the Black Sea region, is very important. Trade, a lot of communication, it's close to us. Iran. Iran is, be honestly, a threat. Iran, I think, cannot be, for example, a light country or friendly country because of its political shape. Chinese sharp power, interest. China's Chinese interested in this proxy war because Russia backed by China in Ukrainian war, in Ukraine. Also, South Caucasus started to be viewed as part of the greater Middle East, with all that it entails. Consequently, honestly, big political games and combinations unfold, which threaten to turn the region into a part of clash between those struggling for Caucasus. And Caucasus is like a key, which is a bridge, which is connecting civilizations, as Samuel Huntington said. And we see clash of civilizations in the same time. Geopolitical interests with clash of civilizations, and first of all, the Atlantic and Eurasian interests. Internationally dominant power, together with its politically motivated and economically dynamic partner, the European Union appeared capable not only of reviving the West global, for example, preeminence, but also for itself as a constructive global role. You can play global role if we will rethink, and we have to think pragmatically. Wishful thinking is completely disaster for every country, for every politician, and worst prediction case in such case and such reality. Weak positions of the USA, for example, and the EU by no means suggest decreased interest in South Caucasus and less attention to South Caucasus, to Georgia, for example, in such case, which is located on the crossroads, as I already mentioned, of political storms from east and west and north and south. It will be a loss of really important geostrategical place and country, location. The newly established states of the region slowly turn from objects into subjects of international law as well. The Caucasus will remain for long in the focus of important interests of these countries. Everybody interested to control the Black Sea roads, yeah? Trade roads, strategic roads. Classic hegemon states of the region are Russia, Turkey, Iran, but mostly Russia. And Turkey is like a competitor in this case and push back Russian interest in the region. Iran tries, but Iran is under sanctions for a decade, and this country is weak. But his forces and active measures aren't as weak as the economy and cooperation with developed countries. And all this will destroy region development with struggle for supremacy. This is the point. Two critical circumstances prevent them from becoming full-fledged members of the international community and participating in the process of new world order formation. These are A, east to west struggle, and B, this is the ethnic and interstate conflicts. And conflicts we can see everywhere in modern world, in the 21st century, because during this Cold War, there were some rules, yes, but some brinkmanship, back-ear diplomacy, pocket diplomacy, and other methods. And now we have we faced asymmetric threats. We see and face and we can feel hybrid warfare from Russian side, for example, my country, Ukraine. And generally, the Caucasus, along with the Balkans, are considered sources of the threat to the international security. The Balkans are a sensitive case, but Georgia is a strategic case. In case of Georgia, Russia thinks that this region is like his property, which was the part of the USSR. And they think till nowadays from the prism of USSR. Nothing changed in Russia. They have their imperial ambitions, ambitious, and to rule their ex-Soviet countries. In addition to overt conflicts between Georgia, and we know that Georgians, Asians, Ossetians, Armenians, and Azeri people, these are all manipulated by Russia. Separatists in Abkhazia, in a so-called Ossetia, they manipulated and controlled by Russian special services as well. Armenia and Karabakh conflict was also manipulated by Russian active measures. There are covert animosities between ethnic majorities of the South Caucasus states and minority Armenians of Georgia. The Russians try to create some problems in this region as well. The no peace situation in Caucasus, of course, but the challenges we face, it's existential, because Russia always tried to destroy and make some genocide, as they did in Chechnya, as they did in Bucha, Gostomel. Before Gostomel, Bucha was Abkhazia. This is in Georgia, western part, the Black Sea part of the Georgia. And this is the point and the problem. We had a lot of aids. We had a lot of support, thematic allocations, donors, flows of aids. But after pressure from the Russia and the threat of the Russia, our modern government tries to balance cooperation with Western countries, with the EU, with the US, supporting democracy in South Caucasus. It's really interesting that question is why we have different results in region countries. Yes, this means that international system is really important. Geopolitical reality is really important and considerable. National political reality is very sensitive. And this is the levels of analysis, and critical analysis is really important. Critical thinking is really important, and Russia do not like critical thinking because here is facts, knowledge, and data. And when we discuss reality of situation, they do not like and do not accept this reality. World politics, yes, it's a good, bad sides. What is good for people is not good for politicians, and what is good for politicians is not always good for people. This means that it depends on geopolitical issues. It depends on location, about the background of the country, where our region and countries in our region, for example, were for 70 years part of the Soviet Union. This means that the socialism has its impact on our country as well. Some of them are in good condition, for example, Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, Estonia, Slovenia, Lithuania, Latvia. In not good situation, in bad situation are Kyrgyzstan, Moldova, Georgia, Mongolia, Macedonia, yes. Croatia, Slovakia are under oppression. Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Azerbaijan, Bulgaria, Armenia, Albania, Romania had influence of the socialism, and they have some ties with Russia. This is the problem. And such problems create non-stable area, ground for investors. This is the main problem. Trust, conflicts, crisis, or not secured region. Yes, this means our region is a crossroad. This means that an intersection between Europe and Middle East, from the Eastern Balkans to the South Caucasus, is not well secured. The main point is, and important thing is, policy coordination, facilities, connectivity, infrastructure, unimpeded trade, financial integration is important as well. People-to-people bonds between partner countries and region countries. Region countries are also must be under some control controlled by the international law, international some conventions. But there are the countries which do not care about the conventions, about the international law, and about the diplomacy, negotiations. They care about only with the sharp power, hard power, not smart power, not soft power, not smart power. Yes, only hard and sharp. And we all know who use which tool. The operational risk model criteria considers 10 separate risk criteria, and risk management and prediction of the future, assessment of the reality on global level, on regional level, on local level. This is the butterfly effect, domino effect, which works well. This means that cornerstone, welfare, and principles must be protected and defended by the developed countries, by the democratic countries. This means that global security, regional and local security issues are very important. Political stability, government effectiveness. No, democratic governance will create product which will be good for, and beneficiaries will be like as their population and citizens on the local level, and healthy cooperation and communication with regional and on global level. legal and regulatory environment, macroeconomic risks, foreign trade and payments issues, labor markets, financial risks, the standard of local infrastructure, and tax policy, all these aspects creating a democratic and developed country. Political stability risk means that this will bring social unrest, orderly transfers, opposition stance, excessive executive authority, international tensions. This is really important on government effectiveness risk, policy formulation, of bureaucracy, excessive bureaucracy, vested interests, corruption, accountability of public of human rights, and be obeyed the laws. This is the government effectiveness risks, and infrastructure risk is a main value and main point in this case as well, I think, because if we in 21st century we do not have infrastructure, if we do not have good facilities, there is impossible some investments, some interest from some companies, yes, some transnational companies, corporations. For ports facilities, we have two ports, for example, in my country, but in Batumi and Poti. This means that this is the roads, trade roads, centers, Black Sea, which is the main strategic point for all countries. Even China is interested in this. This is the deep sea port. This means that he is military issues as well. Submarines can enter these ports. Anaklia is really important. Anaklia deep sea port. And we had the project about the Anaklia, which is not in the interest of the Russian Federation and other countries. It's in interest of US and EU, because this is not only an nuclear port. There was a project from 7 or 9 phases are there. There must be built free economic zone, a nuclear city, a lot of facilities, international peace university. This was the project, but this project failed after oppression from the Russian Federation. Port facilities, air transport facilities, retail and distribution network, telephone network, road network, power network, rail network, IT infrastructure, everything must be in good conditions on high top level to create and build new some area of interest, which will be new democratic statue of liberty in this region. Eneklia was the great project. And the main dimensions which we have to care about is ideology. And we have to pay more attention to global threats. Yes, we faced a lot of threats, international terrorism. No, we do not have domestic terrorism, thanks God, but we are surrounded by terrorist countries. The main point is organization, strengthen authority and solidarity, and culture. Cultural issues are very important. Limited influence, cultural limited influence for non-democratic countries. This is the main point, I think, because propaganda, disinformation, misinformation works well. And when culture will be limited from these such countries, I always mention about Russia, the first threat for Georgia and Ukraine and civilized war, unfortunately. If we will care all about these issues, we will reach sustainable development goals. 17 sustainable development goals, which are drafted and most important goals created by the UN, by United Nations, yes? This means that first is no poverty. And we see even in East Europe, there are poor children, hungry children, zero hunger. We have hunger in different countries in Asia, in Africa. Even in Ukraine during this war and crisis, there was a humanitarian crisis. Good health and being. This is under huge question mark. Is health and well-being protected, and is there created around the globe, even on 60% for everybody? Quality of education. I watched a video about Lagos, and I had some question about the way out from this such situation and condition in Lagos, what we can do. Locals asked me to give advice. It's really complicated without donors to support such countries, because quality of education is poor. If we do not have awareness and education, we cannot develop any country. Gender equality. This is the issue as well in different countries. I read reviews of 13 countries, read reviews about their problems, what kind of challenges they face. And gender equality is one of them. With, of course, with quality of education, I'm talking about Asian countries, but mostly in African countries. This is the main issue. Clean and clean water and sanitation. Sanitation is the main problem in Asian and African countries as well, and not only there. What else is important? Affordable. I'm not talking about the clean energy because we face these 6 main problems yet. But 7th, affordable of clean energy. It's interesting, but it's, I think, for developed countries. Decent work and economic growth. It's also interesting for developing for developing countries, for countries which are on the path of the development. Industry, innovation, and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production. As I remember, there was a climate action. Yes, because climate action is really important during such unstable world when we have a lot of war actions, missiles, special weapons used by other countries, different countries during the war, the battlegrounds. Life below water, then we know what's going on there. The sea issues, life on land. Peace, justice, and strong institutions. For post-Soviet countries, it's a challenge to create some justice and strong institutions without corruption or nepotism or weaknesses like this, and partnerships for the goals. This is really important as well. Then dimensions of human security, I think it's important as well. Here are the points and topics which are important if we're going to reach goals. Economic security, poverty, unemployment, lack of access to economic opportunities, when there is not balance between the mid class, for example, poor class, high level class, high mid-level class. For example, in my country, Georgia, we do not have a high middle class.
You just have 2 separate classes. You have lower level and middle. There's no.
We have middle, low, and high class, but no high middle class. Middle and high middle, yes? We have only middle, not high middle class.
Okay.
And middle class, yes, middle class, but poor is much more now for the last 10 years. Unfortunately, it's increased in quantity. Food security is important as well. I remember that my Indian friend told me that they have the situation like this, that they have rich and poor class, but not too much middle class. We have middle class, but not too much. Food security, hunger, famine, sudden change in food availability and prices are very important. Prices are changeable day by day, in my country even. Epidemics, malnutrition, poor sanitation, lack of access to healthcare. It's a problem for different countries, for a lot of countries. Even in my country, sometimes it's a problem. to have good health care, environment because of prices and procedures, environmental security. This is the degradation. The resources are like a depletion, natural disasters, climate change is a challenge as well. And personal security, human security, physical violence, human trafficking, child labor. This is also problem because TOC is working and there is a transnational organized crime groups, and there was a really interesting curse by US National Guard that terror crime nexus. There is not borders between all two these because they use the same methods of physical violence, human trafficking, child labor, narco traffic, and proliferation of weapons mass destruction. They try to use these old tools, but special services working to prevent all these issues and threats. Community security, yes, interethnic, religious, identity-based tensions, crime and terrorism are the main issues we face, and this is the challenge for global world as well. And mostly in non-developed countries, we face terrorist attacks by statistics. Statistics told us that if there is a 2-3 maximum yearly some attacks of the terrorists in, for example, in other countries in Asia, in African countries, there is dozens. And political stability and security. Political repression, human rights abuses, weak rule of law. This is the issues some countries face and challenge. This is a challenge for us as well. We have evaluation. We have to use evaluation criteria. Coherence, yes. How well does the intervention fit, for example? Sustainability, will the benefits last and for how long? Efficiency, how well are resources used? Resources sent by donors, for example, or by allied countries, strategic partners. Relevance, is the intervention doing the right things? Impact, what difference is the intervention making? Is it better after intervention and donations? The situation is better than it was before. If it's worse, the situation is worse in the worst situation condition is the country. What goes wrong? What went wrong? And effectiveness is the intervention achieving its objectives. And evaluation criteria and estimation of situation is really important. But how we can manage situation if we are 3 million population country, yeah? We have 3 million people in our country. What is the problem to reach all goals for us is for we're developing country, yes? We're not developed. We're not Scandinavia. We're not Western Europe, yes? We face hybrid warfare, a combination of multiple conventional and unconventional tools of warfare. And we know that hybrid warfare consists from special forces, irregular forces, support of local unrest, and we had from 1990s a lot of cases of this. Information warfare, propaganda, diplomacy used for active measures, cyber attacks, economic warfare, regular military forces oppression, or in 2008. All these are the challenges we face. Gain political and economic leverage in the region and in our country is the main point for our opponents, yes? Our threats. Destabilize economic, military, and scientific potential is the main point and main interest for them. Destabilization of political and economic life. Destabilization of the territorial integrity, inspiring mass riots, disruption of the constitutional order. This is the main interest and point of our enemy. And task, what is the phase? For first phase is situational analysis, for example, how we can use SWOT analyzing system, pest analyzing system to evaluate our enemies, threats. And second is the mapping and analysis of needs, vulnerabilities, and capacities. We need to assess threats, assess risks, assess vulnerabilities, assess opportunities. We have to predict the future, and collective outcome will be like a build strategies. In the first step, we will have implementation of the like a participatory manner activities. Phase 5 will be now like a monitoring and evaluation of ongoing process. And I was wondering about the tracker. I always use tracker like Alliance for, which is created by Alliance for Securing Democracy. It's a really interesting tracker and explore all incidents on the world map. This is like a manual where we can always see reality of the modern 21st century world. This is the point. I use it always. We have here everything what is going on. Where, how, when, and United States, for example. 169 attacks. By whom? Of course, by two actors, first and second. These actors attacking, but most active is, of course, Russia. On the second stage, on activity stage, is China. And what kind of activities we have and attacks? Attacks we have threat actors, of course. Information manipulation, cyber operations, civil society subversion, unrest. I already mentioned about that. Alien finance, kinetic operations, economic coercion, and these are by countries. We can see how many, where, in which direction they attack us. This is the Georgia. In Georgia, we have 14 attacks. France, and so on. This is the reality of our 21st century daily life in secured world, unfortunately. Canada 27, and so on and so on. This is the point. We're under oppression, we try to develop, to survive, but oppression is Ukraine, 48. And what kind of? Everything you managed by special services, of course, by GRU, by SVR, but GRU is most aggressive player and actor using active measures around the globe. This is the point, this is the reality we face and we live till nowadays. And I hope that soon we will change this reality. This was the main point I was going to share with you, Your Excellency. Thank you for your attention. Maybe I was a little bit pessimistic, but from a security prism, I think that I am a little bit realistic.
And
Yes.
there's nothing wrong with that. My question for you would be, what role should public-private partnerships play in countering cyber and disinformation components of hybrid warfare?
Oh, it's a great question. Thank you so much. Private think tanks, corporations, they have to strengthen their cyber capabilities, because the objects of interest and the persons of interest are not only governmental facilities. Their interdependency of the strategic and critical facilities, because we know that there is a corporational espionage as well, and corporations are the main actors for the country. This is the critical infrastructure, economy is the existential for citizens, yes, for daily life. If something will be destroyed, bank system, ATM system, transfer system, SWIFT system, anything like this, there will be subversion. This means that they will destroy reputation of the company, of the corporation. This will be a reputational burn. This will be lose of billions of dollars. This will be collapse for corporations for strategic and critical infrastructure. This means that cyber security alliance and civil, some projects, some think tanks, NGOs, companies, corporations have to cooperate with experienced cyber laboratories and of course with government companies as well. This is main point. Without cooperation, whatever the weather, we must move together. We have to face together these old challenges and to push them back, like an alliance, like a group, because they have their alliances. We should create our own to protect ourselves, our interests, our goals. Our goals are development, progress, universal values. They try to destroy. We should not let them do that.
Now, do you think that NATO's current doctrine is sufficient to address hybrid warfare, or does it require a more structural reform?
It's a really brilliant question. Thank you so much. Yes, be honestly, I pessimist was looking at UN and NATO, but NATO is more close to modern challenges. They had several mistakes when they do not accept in their cycle in alliance several countries, and this was like a green light for Russian Federation to attack these countries. I'm talking about Georgia and Ukraine. When NATO denied it to accept these countries as members, new members of the NATO, Russia decided to attack. Why? Because they thought that NATO was not interested in these countries, and this was like a sign, green light, to get them back to their sphere of. This was a little bit mistake, I think. But now on the modern stage, I think that they analyzed and they now can see reality, which we are faced. It's not only Russia. We have proxy war in Ukraine, and there are a lot of countries Russia is backed by. China, North Korea, Iran, and so on. This means that NATO has to realize reality, and to be more strict, to use more preventive measures, active measures, even some aggressive measures if it's necessary, because in other way we will face Third World War, and I wrote about that in my article, in my interview as well. Last year, summer period, when I talked about that it will be more complicated situation if Western Hemisphere will not be more active against Russian active measures and aggressive steps against neighbors, yes. It was last year, and unfortunately we faced the reality, and unfortunately I was right, because the attitudes, psychotype, mentality of Soviet Russia and modern Russia is the same. And these persons who are on the top and ruling Russia are raised by Andropov. And Andropov was a strict person in KGB. He was chair of the KGB. And this is his legacy today in Russia, KGB legacy. And methods are the same, active measures. The active and the hybrid warfare created from the KGB active measures, remaked, installed use modern tools, and remaked it. Nothing new. But technology and possibilities, abilities, tools are more good to use and more developed to use for asymmetric and different active measures. They use Wagner and unofficial forces to disrupt, to burn, to destroy, to collapse everything. And this is the Kalashnikov is their type mentality, their psychotype. Nothing new. Even during the Cold War, they use the same methods. The methods are signature is the same, unfortunately.
That's interesting. Now, do you think with the steps that you stated that NATO should take, do you think that the states would be proactive in taking those same steps to mitigate long-term societal effects on hybrid warfare, or should they go a different route?
I think that they have to make some effective steps, move forward. In international relations, we remember brinkmanship, the method, brinkmanship. Russia is using it always. Push to the end to get more benefits. Brinkmanship is used several times during history. They always threaten us with ballistic missiles, with nuclear weapon, but this is all like a deception. This is like a method of brinkmanship, nothing else. Nobody will let them do this. And this is like fairy tales for me, for example, that Russia is has a second army in the world. This is a fairy tale. Everybody saw in Ukraine what kind of army Russia has. There's the myth as well that they didn't use for the beginning elite of the Russian army, but everything is, I think, fairy tales. Under such oppression of developed countries, sanctions, economic crisis, they will not be able to continue. But if they will have more harder oppression, more hard sanctions, more active measures from the Western Hemisphere, they will just collapse. They are already on the phase of this way. They will collapse the economy and so on. Brave and active.
We do. We definitely do. I also think that media influence also has a lot to do with what's going on in the world.
It's a huge, huge influence. James Clapper, in his Mr. James Clapper, ODNI, Director of National Intelligence of US, wrote a great book, Facts and Fears, where he describes the role and influence of the social media and media on the minds of the citizens. How Russia used this tool to manipulate, to create some new reality, misinformation, disinformation, to create different visual of reality. During the competition of the, yes, we know candidates, yes, who, when, why, the myths that somebody was like a vampire, somebody was I don't know, traitor and so on, and they use these bots and trolls and I don't know what the terms. Yes, I know, but why they created such persons and such networks? What for? When they can to develop, be the part of the civilized war, they decided to be like country non grata. This is nonsense for me. And they have a lot of resources. They have all the resources Mendeleev charter has. I don't know.
The war takes it takes a toll on not only commercialization, but it also takes a toll on society because it affects the children more than it affects the adults.
Children.
If you could end the war, what would be your way of ending the war if you could? You alone.
If I finish the war in Ukraine, what would be my steps? Further steps? Yeah. As Zbigniew Brzezinski said, if we want peace, we have to divide Russia in several pieces, or we have to erase Russia from the earth. But I will not erase, but I would like to divide it in several pieces to finish these empirical Soviet imperial ambitions. I would do that. I agree with Zbigniew Brzezinski. He was a smart guy. He was great scientist.
Now, you speak on him. If you could just share more information about him. This is a scientist I've heard very little about.
Great chessboard. Geopolitical book. Zbigniew Brzezinski. He was a Polish Jew, as I know. He was a national security advisor of the Jimmy Carter, and he wrote a great book as well. I have to read it again, fourth or fifth time. It's brilliant book. It's like a geopolitical strategy, and he predicted the Ukrainian events as well. 10 or 15 years before, he was great in prediction of the future.
That is a book that I will have to check out and read. But I have also noticed, though, that we have a lot of books that have been produced by brilliant people that when you look back, you have to sit there and go, they were, as they call them, they were a mad scientist or they were a mad person, whichever the phrase that they use is. But when you actually read them and you're absorbing the information, it's almost like they stepped into the future and they're telling us, this is what's going to happen.
Yes, the prediction of the future. And we have manuals, we have recipes, but I don't know why, but we do not use these manuals and these brilliant ideas when we already have everything.
We really don't. I can count on my fingers and toes how many issues that have gone on in the war, wars, catastrophes between, what was it? We had the mad cow disease outbreak. Then there was the poisonous mosquitoes, I think, that went on for a very short periodic time, but it was a big thing. They talked about it. I forget. I believe it was on TED Talks, but someone was speaking about the COVID pandemic. They didn't name it COVID, but they specifically stated, and I will never forget this, I was young, but they had said that there's going to be a pandemic that hits that is going to shut down the world for can't remember exactly the amount of time they've said, but then everyone laughed about it. Oh, that's never going to happen. And then look what happened. COVID hit, world shut down. So I have to sit back and
Isaac Asimov or somebody wrote about that as well, as if I am not mistaken. Asimov wrote about such predictions, as I remember, about different kinds of predictions he wrote. Yes, we have brilliant minds which are underestimated, not used by Gene Sharp as well. He was brilliant mind as well, a brilliant scientist. He wrote From Dictatorship to Democracy, Nonviolent Actions, now 192 nonviolent action methods. He was brilliant as well. We have brilliant minds around the globe. Manuals, recipes, but as I said, what is good for politicians is not good for people. What is good for people, not good for politicians.
a money-making scheme,
Unfortunately.
fortunately.
Knowledge.
Yeah.
Knowledge.
Well, they do say that war is the biggest money-producing
Definitely. Agree.
that goes on.
Bloody money.
It is bloody money. Now, I also know that you are a part of the JGC Council, the JGC PFIC, which they are helping out or bringing in peace and sustainability into the world. How does that make you feel being a part of such a big movement, especially considering what you speak about and educate everyone on and what you are fighting for?
I always sharing with my knowledge. I am educator. I'm researcher. Awareness. in humanitarian emergencies, crisis management, education level development. If my knowledge, my experience is valuable and needed and required, I always support and like altruist, enthusiast, I always have time to spend, to share, and to support and help the people who is needed in such support. And knowledge is the main power, I think. Knowledge and education. And I support in this way to organize some activities, forums, conferences, to create magazines, research, analysis, problem solving, case studies, decision-making process development, to raise new leaders community around the globe. And all I got experience, I try to share. And these platforms around the world, global platforms, is really great tool to share, to support, and to help young youth of different countries. It's Asia, Africa, or everywhere. If it's possible, why not? It's universal values, and this is our role of educators to share with our knowledge, which, for example, I collected for more than 25 years. I will be happy if I will be useful in this way. My knowledge, my energy, my qualifications and experience. I am always ready to serve for universal values, for peace, development, human security. Yes, I am security, intelligence, and so on, researcher and expert, but I prefer development and prosperity. But civis pacem para bellum. If we want a peace, we have to be ready for war in the same time.
That we do.
Help me God.
Now, do you agree with, because I have read, and it could be fake news, because nowadays I don't even know what is real and what is not real, but they had stated that they were going to bring back the drafting into the war. Me personally, I'm on the fence about that, because it's you're getting a piece of paper. And before anyone thinks that I am talking negative about the men and women who fight for our country, absolutely not. I commend them, their bravery, their honor, their sacrifice that they make. The reason why I'm on the fence is because we have children who are turning 18 that are still trying to figure out what it is, their calling is, what they want to do in life. And then all of a sudden in the mail, they're getting a piece of paper stating that you have to go to war. Some are not built for that. Just me personally speaking. How does that make you feel if they do bring that back to where once you turn 18, there could be a chance where you could get drafted into the war?
Yes, it's really a complicated situation. But war never asks us when it will come. This means that everybody should have awareness in each age, to know how to react during the emergency, during the war. If we will not send our children to the war, they have to be prepared to protect their homeland, not go to war, to fight or war, to start war with other countries. Yet, with developed countries, democracies will not start war with each other. And democratic countries will not start and create some conflict with other countries. We prefer to develop. I hope that my country one day will be as democratic and on 110% democratic country, and will cut all ties with Russia, with Soviet mentality. I hope one day it will be possible. Every generation has to be ready for this. Before we will have such countries around us, even 18 years old man must be ready to protect his home and to go through basic military training program. It's just for hope for the best, plan for the worst. This is like this. This works like this. Yes. And patriots always will defend their homeland in every age. I remember that yes, it was like written by founding fathers that the freedom must be supported by the bloods of the tyrants and sometimes with bloods of the patriots. This means that it's like academic shape. They said in different way. I will not repeat in strict manners.
No, you are absolutely right in that aspect. What's the best piece of advice that you can give to everyone that is watching?
Sorry, Your Excellency?
What is the best piece of advice that you can give to everyone that's watching, especially those who are dealing with the unfortunate effects of war in their country?
I always evaluate and estimate everything from the security prism. More critical thinking, more strategic thinking, more strategic disciplines, education, set practice, and our threats and the challenges will not defeat us. Never. Because we do not believe in luck, we believe in skills. We have to gain our skills, security, education, training, awareness, preventive measures and actions, even on a civil population level is really, and on community level is really important, because enemy will start by subversion, diversion, some attacks like this, by active measures, and after they will shake some strategic points, they will start and attack. They will start the war and they will attack front line. This means that we have to be more preventive, more active, and more resistance. More resistance, and the resistance operating concept is important as well. Irregular warfare, unconventional warfare is the interesting tools as well, which is used to prevent hybrid warfare, and read a lot of strategic and security issues. This is my advice for persons, future professionals, use of all countries who are oriented on the development and prosperity. Because non-developed countries and enemy countries are always thinking about crisis, conflict. We are oriented on the progress and development welfare. They are not, and they will lose this war, definitely.
Well, let's hope that we have an end to the war soon and we can come together in peace.
Peace is universal.
Peace is definitely universal. I want to thank you for your time today, Dr.
Thank you so
Tornike,
much.
and thank you for tuning into the Summit Sessions podcast. This is going to conclude it. I'm your host, Lady Caitlin Swinton. You all have a wonderful rest of your day.
My pleasure, my honor.
Thank you.